beyond words. No one connects you to the Caribbean like Princess. Princess Cruises, sailing the Caribbean. Book now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final round in the sport class. Porsche Club America Sim Racing Series 15. Our champion may already be decided in the form of Daniel Harmon, but there's still one last race result to settle here at Daytona. It's the 2-hour finale. The penultimate of these will be live tomorrow, same time, same place, with the final one of these 2-hour races that constitutes our finale for Series 15. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, bringing you commentary here tonight. Romero Augustin Cisneros is behind the cameras of this RaceSpotTV broadcast here tonight. As I say, we are at the end of a long season that started all the way back in January. Now at the end of April, we're here at Daytona for our 2-hour finale. Throughout the season so far, through the last 7 tracks, it's all been 1-hour races with just the 1 pit stop required. Well, tonight could even be 2 or 3, depending on how this race goes. It is the only race that is 2 hours in length, and in the time that I've been doing PCA in the last couple of years, I've never known a race like it. So it's been interesting, but unfortunately there are no championship implications in this class, unlike the pro class last week, for example. Daniel Harmon leads by 300 points. Yes, there are 350 available for a win, but Harmon hasn't finished outside the top 5 yet this season. And that means his drop round is very, very good. Lee Binkley and Sean Zaharchuk are tied on 1800, and they can't move any higher than 2nd or 3rd. But it's a winner takes all for them tonight. Joseph Evers is 4th and probably going to finish there. Anthony Carbone Jr. is the last driver inside the top 5 and could very much lose his place in there. Dennis Lynn, Mike Saxton, Adam Gerling, Christopher Costis and Tim Thornton are all very close behind him in that 5th position. That's probably going to be the one to watch tonight as far as the championship is concerned. The race is really what we'll be focusing in on, to be honest, because as we were just looking, me and Ramiro, at the grid on the way in here, Lee Binkley doesn't seem to be in the session at the moment, and is running out of time to get here in time for the race. So that would be a big shame if Binkley were not to be here for the final round of the season. It'd be the first one he's missed all season, but because of that, his drop round currently is his only race at Long Beach, his only race where he finished outside the top 4. Well, that's going to change now, and it means that he is very, very unlikely to win this title. I think with that, to get this 2nd place. I think with the amount of people here tonight, it's almost guaranteed. There's Dave Douglas, who might well have taken a pole, and he's looking over his shoulder at the moment. Maybe celebrating the fact, and why not as well. Pole for the last race of the season. There's Ed Trippett, always get to enjoy his camera. The VR headset strapped up as always. Ready to go for the race in a few moments' time. Qualifying just about to draw to a close, by the way. And here's Kevin Hamann, who's down on the grid at the moment as well, or down on the pit lane. He's only qualified 22nd. We'll hope to race his way through the field. He's got a cap that Ramiro recognises, but I don't know what the. Oh, it's from Ayrton Senna, apparently. There you go. So yeah, well spotted, Ramiro, on that. I would have known from the side as well. But yeah, thanks to those who've lent us their camera throughout the season. And by the way, you still can. There'll be a link for it. So, well, I wish I could tell you where the link was, but there'll be a link for it somewhere. Always great, especially in the PCA, that we get your cameras on stream. And yeah, it is good to have them for the finale. Well, good evening to everybody watching on as well. Arthur Chan popping in before this race starts. Jeff Williams wishing everyone good luck. He says it's been great racing against all of you this season. Sorry to miss the finale. Going to miss those who move to the club class. Of course, there will be some who move up after this season. That's the way of the PCA. If you do well in one class, you can very quickly start moving up the categories, as we've seen a couple of drivers do to quite impressive fashion in recent seasons. I think Sheldon Zahaujchuk, for one, it was not in the challenge class that long ago. Maybe it was longer ago than I think, but or maybe I've invented it, but I'm pretty sure he was in the challenge class not that long ago, and here he is now in the top 3 of the sport class, which is well, certainly historically the position in which you can move up to the next class. We'll obviously see what happens in the off season with regards to everybody being placed, where they're going to be placed over the course of the off season, which of course is a long off season this time round. Season 16, we always race in the winter time, really, and so season 16 will be a little while away. The drivers just making their way out for warm-up. We'll have a lap on board in a moment with the pole sitter, Dave Douglas, taking a pole, and what a great lap from him, because it's not been his best season really, as far as having good fortune. He's only been in the top 10 once. That was at Phillip Island, which is an awful long time ago now. So we'll hope for something like that, or perhaps even better here tonight with the pole position that he looks to have taken. And here is the replay. A 1:44.2 getting us underway for tonight. In towards turn 1, maximising the entry, getting up next to the wall, trying to manage the braking while turning here for the apex and that tyre wall on the left-hand side there. Now up through the chicane, over the curves, and then onto the brakes again. Ready for turn, the International Horseshoe, indeed. Want to maybe be a little bit tighter than that, but looking for a good exit out of these turns is the main thing. And through the dog leg, completely flat out in these GT3s. Pulling it to the left so that you can get that entry. It's a very long braking zone here, and you're turning a little bit on the brakes here as well. The West Horseshoe, running it out wide. That would have been close to an off-track, goodness me. Very close. And towards turn 6, and could argue the most important corner on this racetrack. A little bit wide, but that's fine. As long as he's got good speed. It means he's run all the way down the straight here towards the bus stop chicane. That will be a solid one at least. Just keeps it to the left there, just shortening the distance for a moment, then over to the right eventually to open up the bus stop chicane with those new curves. Last time we came here in the PCA, they weren't quite like this, but plus the Daytona 24 in iRacing has been and gone since then. Through there nice and calmly, nice and safely. And back onto the banking again for the run up towards the line. And that is going to be a 1:44.2 and a pole position for Dave Douglas here tonight. And say, what a great pole position it has been. Unfortunately this season he's had numerous races where he's finished, sort of 30th or worse. 3 races where he's finished 30th or worse. And one DNS at Road Atlanta. It's contributed to a pretty poor point score by his standards. 20th place for the California Inland Region driver. He's taken the pole here though by 900ths of a second. Adam Girling and Sheldon Zahaujchuk are very close, separated there, just 1,000ths between those two. Matt Trolley is in 4th. Anthony James and Philip Ramey are then sharing row 3. Top Goldberg and Curtis Crumell on row 4 in front of Joseph Evers and Andrew Long rounding out the top 10. Mike Saxton and Tim Thornton both top 10 in the points. They're on row 6. Donald Manning is the last driver within a second of pole. Randy Lervold alongside. Ryan Mullaney and Peter Bodensteiner. Never haven't seen too much in the series this season. row 8, then Alan Hales and David Langston on row 9. Anthony DiVincenzo and Ed Trippett then round out the top 20 ahead of Antonio De Silva and Kevin Herman. Peter Yerkes, last driver set a time. Dan Harmon deciding, I think, on this occasion to start from the back. Chris Costis didn't set a lap time either. But I think that's a conscious decision from Daniel Harmon. He's already won the series, so might as well have some fun, try and come through the field. Indeed, he's not finished outside the top 5 yet this season. We'll see whether this stunt brings that to an end, but hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully we can see him entertainingly working his way through the field here tonight. We'll wait and see as warm-up comes to a close. He's definitely going to race because he's just gone out in warm-up and set the best time in warm-up. So he's definitely going to race. He's definitely pretty quick as well. But can he get through the whole field in that amount of time? Might be a little bit difficult for him to get all that way. But he is going to give it a good go. So fair play to him for that. 25 drivers in the field, as you've just seen. Expecting 69 laps tonight. I believe we got 70 odd for the pro class last week, but see, over a 2-hour race and even just being, a little bit slower per lap does add up in the end. 24 degrees Celsius on the racetrack. That's 75 Fahrenheit. Will increase because we are going to race towards midday, even in the middle of January here. We are down in Florida, so tropical is the way I would describe the conditions potentially down here. Can get very, very warm indeed, even in January. So we'll see whether that's the case here. Tyres certainly the less concern though. Tonight is all about fuel. I should probably give you a bit of a background on the format really, because normally it's just a 1-hour race for these drivers. Well, this time around it is 2 hours, of course. Now that doesn't change the limits on fuel that we have in this series, which in a normal circumstance limits the drivers to having to make one pit stop throughout the hour-long race. It gives them quite a big pit window. But over the 2 hours, it makes it very tight as to whether they can do 2 stops or end up having to make 3. Now, in the Pro Class race last week, there was a pretty remarkable bit of fuel saving and speed going on at the same time from the winner of the race and eventual champion, David Mendonca. If anyone can do both tonight, then that will be very, very impressive. However, that is easier said than done. More likely is a grouping at the front, I think, trying to save fuel to make it on 2 stops. There may be a runaway driver ended up going for 3. But that's the scenario. It's going to be all about fuel tonight. Tyres are less a concern, although they probably will change a set at some point when they're taking a longer pit stop at some point in today's race. But let's wait and see. As Dave Douglas is giving control of the field for the final time in the sport class of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series 15. We are underway. Green flag waves at Daytona. One final 2-hour race. One final race winner up for grabs. Douglas in towards turn 1. Holds the lead very nicely. Adam Gerling slots in behind as well. And third, Sheldon Zaharchuk in front of Matt Trolley, who's then side by side with Anthony James. Oh, they were close, and they made contact here. Off goes Trolley in the purple there to the outside. I thought they were close to making contact. It turns out they absolutely did. And Matt Trolley ends up on the outside of the road as they come up towards the International Horseshoe for the first time. Single file for the front 3. They managed to get themselves through nicely, but in the battle for 4th, there must have been a little bit of contact. We'll go back and have a look at the race start again in a moment. But look at the braking already in the field here. Dave Douglas not waiting around. Immediately getting down to it. putting on the pace at the front. Adam Girling so far the only one able to go with him. Sheldon Zaharchuk has got a bit of catching up to do here to try and get into that slipstream. Andrew Long and Curtis Cromwell nearly went side by side into the bus stop chicane there as well. So even if Zaharchuk can connect these two groups and make it a front six, it's still a very small leading group by comparison. Part of it, of course, created by lap number 1 and the contact here that we saw on opening lap. Let's see it again here. Zaharchuk's on the inside, Trolley in the purple on the outside, so this is where he gets into the tunnel. Zaharchuk slipped through nicely, but when they're side by side, there's just the tiniest bit of contact, and it sends Trolley straight into the wall. Meantime, Alan Hales has been off the road, by the way, and dropped to the very back of the field. That must have happened in towards turn number 1, I suppose. And Alan Hales does go back to the pit lane. Ramey spins now out of the West Horseshoe. These drivers are finding it difficult to get up to speed, and there's another one in the background there. Dear oh dear, that's Ryan Mullaney, who's gone the other direction coming out of the West Horseshoe. 2 cars off and a slalom for Peter Yerkset to come through. These guys are not up to speed yet. They are not quite bedded in. They're not warmed up themselves. Never mind the tyres and whatever. So there's a few cold mines early on here as well. Oh, Alan Hale's been power drive. That's why he's got off through turn 1. He hit somebody else on the way through and then went on to hit the wall. Dear oh dear. That is a shame for Hales. David Langston's got a black flag. That'll be a steward's adjudicated one. I wonder whether it was him who actually made the contact. This is Philip Ramey's spin now. Just drops it on the exit there. That's an unusual one. Too eagerly trying to get on the power. And then Ryan Mullaney, I think, gets hit. But let's see. No, he spins as well. But it snaps the other way and he hits the wall pretty hard. A lot going on in these first 5 minutes, but thankfully not for Dave Douglas. In fact, the top 3 all staying in the same positions as they are, but Douglas and Girling are the ones who've created a gap and are consolidating that now over the rest of the field. Zaharchuk leading the next group. Girling, by the way, 8th in the standings, so could very much get to a top 5 with a good performance tonight. We'll work that out later. Here's Anthony Di Vincenzo. He goes for a spin through the international horseshoe. Was already going for that spin before he was hit. Di Vincenzo drops to 19th position after that. It's Sheldon Zaharchuk again. Not far behind Adam Girling, but not quite in the slipstream of him either. That's where you really need to be in these races. Well, at a race like this at Daytona, I mean. You've got to really be in the slipstream. As Joseph Evers is here on Andrew Long. Long drawn-out battles on the way down towards turn 1 here, aren't they? Outside for Evers. He's surely going to be let through. Long not lifting off that early, but he doesn't need to. Evers rips around the outside and he gets in front. And you can see on the right-hand side, by the way, Alan Hales and Ryan Mullaney both back into the race again after some fairly lengthy repairs, so that's good to see for them. Douglas still leads Girling, but they're not quite able to consolidate a margin over the rest like before. This front group is now growing in size. So the Howtrick's here, and so is Anthony James. How many more are going to join before the real meat of this race gets underway? David in the YouTube chat says, bets on a winning strategy, question mark. I think the winning strategy is going to be someone who's going to go for a two-stop, but who's going to be willing to do that at this stage is the bigger question, really, for me. I mean, from a pure enjoyment perspective, it's well known that drivers would prefer just to push flat out the whole time. So that might play a factor for some of those who are not actually really bothered about what the result is and more want to enjoy themselves. They might three-stop. But I mean, if everybody goes on the three stops, then suddenly it negates itself. Jeff Williams says flat out and three stops. The winning strategy. Get your thoughts in the YouTube chat and let us know which you think is going to be the winning strategy. You don't win anything if you're right. but I suppose personal pride, that is worth a lot. Dave Douglas just tough defending towards the International Horseshoe. It's not quite as organised and orderly as what the Pro Class was 7 days ago, this time last week. I was live with every one of the top four classes in the Porsche Club of America this season on Wednesdays and Thursdays here on RaceSpotTV. It's been a pleasure covering the season. We've still got nearly 2 hours to go of the sport class for season 15. You'd be glad to know as well that plans for Series 16 are already in the works. Not actually sure how much I can tell you about them, but I can reassure you that they are in the works once again for another season. As normal, we don't race over the summer, though. It's through the S's again, through the bus stop chicane. The champ's still going to keep calling it, by the way. I know it's the Le Mans chicane now. Hard habit to get out of. And there's Kevin Hamann over his shoulder. Up 8 places so far. And guess who's behind him? Daniel Harmon is up 9 after intentionally not qualifying. Looking to see how far he can make it through the field before this race reaches a close. Maybe that's of some concern to some of the leaders here, because we'll surely be knocking on their door rather soon. Hamann showing defence on the way towards turn 1. And it's successful if Harmon was trying to go through. And hard to tell what the champion in waiting would have really been wanting from turn 1. No, he is wanting to go through, and Hamann continuing to feel the need to defend. It's not just these two in this group, though. This group starts all the way up at Randy Lervold in 10th place. Curtis Krumel and Mike Saxton are not that far removed from it either. Hamann defending into some strange places. Maybe he felt that Harmon might have gone down the inside of turn 6 if he didn't do that, but nevertheless. There are the points, by the way. Look how much it would close up between Harmon and Zahautru. It's not entirely accurate, because Harmon's score of 260 is the minimum he can get. But anyway, it's academic, really. Evers looked like he was just getting through on Andrew Long there into the bus stop. Took a slightly different line as we join them. And here comes Andrew Long. To the outside he goes, in towards turn 1. These two properly fighting. Instead of trying to get involved with that front group, which is probably 5 in number now, although Anthony James and Todd Goldberg are not that close into it. These guys have no intention of trying to catch up to it just for now. Dave Douglas still leads this race. Less than half a second was the gap briefly. There's Adam Gerling, then in second, and then Sheldon Zaharchuk. Driver who's on course to finish second in this season. Maybe higher in this race, we'll see. See that gap to Anthony James just teetering on a second again and again here, depending really on how quick Zaharchuk got out the last corner, it seems. I mean, James got a better exit out the bus stop there, but Zaharchuk's going to get the draft, so he'll not be able to get that much closer, Anthony James, and still gaining. You see the relative there, it's very helpful to keep an eye on. Well, he's just about getting the whiff of the slipstream here. So he's still gaining. At some point he's going to surely turn tables. No, it won't. So, yeah, he must be getting the whiff of a slipstream here, Anthony James. He's not that far away. Hasn't got any excuse here, but dropping out of this group. He's probably within it here. Now got to stay in it for the sake of his race. Oh, contact! Tim Thornton and Randy Lervold through the S's this time. Thornton sent off to the side of the road. Where's he going to rejoin? I thought for a moment he was going to drive across the grass there and rejoin before the dogleg, but no, he rejoins properly just before the International Horseshoe, but he's down to 17th. Well, that was quite well timed. How did this even begin? Thornton gets a nice run here, and I fear he tries to dive for an apex there that, to be fair, Randy Lervold was on. Yes, he was offline and he was going slowly. However, you can't cut him up like that even so. And that's what happened. Puts Thornton a little bit further back. It's Evers and Long again. These guys definitely not a part of that front group. Here comes Adam Gerling. Is this, for the first time, going to be a change for the lead? And is Dave Douglas just going to let it happen? No, he's intent on braking late on the outside and keeping this lead, so be much fuel saving happening here with the racing that we're seeing. I mean, based on what we saw last week in the Pro Class, it's going to take a fair amount of fuel saving to actually make it on fuel, so you're going to have to be careful. Kevin Hammond's in the pit lane. That's the first of 3 stops for sure for him. Only 15 minutes into the race. And if he carries on at this rate, he'll make 8 pit stops, 7 pit stops, but he's definitely not going to do that. It might be 3 though. In fact, it will be 3. Won't be any less. Daniel Harmon also got past Bodensteiner that time. That was the legitimate overtake for 11th. And he's about to therefore make his way into the top 10. Only taken him just over 15 minutes, but look at the gap to the leaders. That's what he's grappling with, really. It's not the guys in front of him. It's the almost 20-second gap that he's got to those in front, led by Dave Douglas. That is the real problem for Harmon as far as getting a race win out of this, if that's what he's thinking about. Nice slow-mo shot here, bouncing over the curves. Nothing better than a slow-mo through a chicane, in my opinion. Hopefully this racetrack possesses one of the best chicanes in the world. It's not particularly annoying or frustrating to break a rhythm of a racetrack. Very much built into the track and its history, really, which is what really helps the bus stop, I think, here. At least because it's a nice section of corners anyway. Simon moves up to the top 10, but I mean, that chicane has been there in that form, although with less curbage in the past than it does now. Since 1985, this sports car course has had its 40th birthday last year. Still as entertaining to watch racing around here as ever. The best oval in the world, I think we can quite confidently say. Well, I can. See, otherwise some of the other bigger ovals in America didn't make similar efforts with their road course, but I guess they can't all do it. We get quite old quite quickly. Dave Douglas, not a very good run at the bus stop chicane there. And here comes Adam Girling. This is going to be a pass for the lead here. Well, I think. For whatever reason, Douglas does seem to be able to hold a pretty quick speed at the front. He's even gaining back some time again by going on the inside through the triangle. And here comes the Harshuk. Now, where's he going to go? He can't get to the inside of Girling either, so he's going to go nowhere. Tim Thornton's got a black flag in the meantime. As down the inside goes Anthony James. Zahochuk was looking for second a minute ago. Now he's been demoted to fourth. Thornton not wasting any time. And straight into the pit lane. As I mentioned previously, and we've banged on about through the season, there's no incident limit penalties here in terms of that black flag, so that has to have been judged by the stewards, as all of them are. The live stewarding we have in this series. It's a straight disqualification if you reach over the instant limit, and last week in the club class race we did see some guys going pretty close. This is Kevin Hamann. Oh my goodness, this is massive! That's a huge crash through the triangle. And thankfully he spins to the inside to the grass so as not to hit anything, but what was going on there? Matt Trolley's trying to get positions back as quickly as possible, I get that, but he was forcing the issue there. And Kevin Hamann is very, very lucky. Trolley's walking wounded, not least after that incident, and, well, probably needs to pit and repair the car and have a think about things. I think after that, that was overly aggressive towards turn one. So he is carrying on, and he's just made it up to second place, Matt Trolley. Second place? Did I just say second place? 12th place, rather. We're watching about for second place. And Girling and Anthony James. In danger of losing time to Douglas again. Should be about halfway through their first stint now, but are they further through than that? And will that force them on to a three-stop? There's Matt Trolley and a black flag, which is hardly the most surprising news we're going to receive tonight. What does Anthony James do here? Go through, stay behind. Oh, he looks one way then the other. No way to go through, though, on this occasion. Trolley does come in to serve his penalty straight away as well. Every time each of these drivers given a penalty, they all do seem to be content to serve it straight away. Probably a good thing. Drops to 19th place. Just trying to look at the damage there. That's what I was referencing earlier on. Mortally wounded and only made worse by that contact with Haman. Well, listening to that, that was Anthony James just lifting off a bit into the bus stop. You would do with a draft up ahead. Still not sure Dave Douglas is doing the same though, leading these two around, although he'll be punching a hole in the air for the others. The others being only Adam Girling and Anthony James in this group now. Nobody else able to just quite stay with it here. Sometimes there's a shaping like he's going to go down the inside or do something. Oh, no, there's been a mistake. Well, there's going to be two changes for the lead here in quick succession. I was about to say that constantly there's a look from Girling, but never any actual move. But this time there is. Douglas, to be fair, made an error, I think. And that allowed Adam Girling to go through, although he didn't quite get the international horseshoe right either. So Anthony James comes steaming through and he takes the lead of this race. Sheldon Zaharchuk is now very much a member of this group now as well, as a result of all that. So Douglas wide through turn one. Would have been feeling the pressure already here. And then, as Girling has a look down the inside, for a moment it looks like he's going to go and hit Douglas. Douglas goes wide. Girling's also a little bit wide and feeling tentative because they're three wide. Douglas doesn't really get on the power either. It's all very odd, but gets Anthony James into the race lead suddenly. Well, that is one of the more unusual passes for the lead you're likely to see. As I say, Sheldon Zaharchuk is now part of this front group again with that moment. So it's been good news for him. He's got to stay out of trouble and stop getting involved with people who are going to take him out of this front group again. Maybe it'll be a blessing in disguise for Dave Douglas now as he is able to do a little bit more fuel saving, but wide through turn one again there, second lap in a row. The next seconds, you can see it in the background. Jason Evers, Todd Goldberg now, and Andrew Long. Oh, a spin onto the banking for Dave Douglas. It looked like Sheldon Zaharchuk was the one offline, but it's gone from bad to worse for Dave Douglas. He's gone wide a lap and a half ago at the International Horseshoe. Now he's gone for a spin coming onto the banking. Well, the pole sitter has just seen this race unravel in a matter of moments. Brakes quite late, but it's the exit he's focusing on. Just trying a little bit hard to get the power down. Zaharchuk only just avoids, and he's actually lost the draft as a result of this, but in any case, he didn't get involved with Douglas at least. And that is in 2 moments how Dave Douglas has fallen out of contention for this race victory. Well, at least it'd be very, very impressive if he could make it back from here. Quite wide from Joseph Evers, put under pressure by Top Goldberg there. Maybe these guys have got a bit more of a chance now. That's the largest group in the top 10. Think they can get their act together, work together maybe. Can catch the leaders. Getting close to Joseph Evers on the brakes there. Into the West Horseshoe, just having a look. And the slipstream again coming back out onto the oval. To the infield here at Daytona. Lots of movement on the banking in this group. Not much working together, which is something they can do with. Here comes Evers. Yep, he's going to look. Well, no, he does fall behind, but does Andrew Long also? Well, no. That's the problem when there's 3 of you. You're not all quite on the same page. Evers in the end gets his fuel saving going quite nicely, but it's just a little bit disorderly in this group, really. Kevin Hamann comes in for a second time, this time hopefully not for a penalty. There's Daniel Harmon on the bottom of your screen. He's now onto the back of Mike Saxton for 8th position. So progress is becoming a little bit more slow going now for the champion in waiting, but he's still making decent progress. And in fact, he's closer to the race lead of Anthony James than he was when we last checked in with him. So could argue things are moving in the right direction, and don't count out a Daniel Harmon race win here at the end. Absolutely do not count that out. Here he comes. Oh, he looks to the inside. I thought he was definitely going to go there. And that was only a look. Wasn't able to head his way down the inside. Well, let's keep an eye on him towards turn 1 here. There's a big gap in front and behind them. Harmon very much racing alone here, not worrying about what groups where, to be honest. Probably the best way to do it from the back. Close over the line, showing the outside. And no. Saxton holds the inside line nicely. And this could become a source of frustration for Daniel Harmon over the course of the next 10 minutes. Let's have a look at replay first. Tennessee DiVincenzo going a little bit wide and for a spin through the bus stop chicane. He's down in 17th place at the moment, but with a stop to Donald Manning, he'll move up to 16th again. Just before this battle kicks off again, remind you for the first time tonight that we're thrilled once again to have Princess Cruises on board as the PCA sim racing title sponsor in 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places we visit and the friendliest crew at sea. Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, during the Trepidate 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. Here's meantime what we've missed. Dave Douglas on the way towards the bus stop. Fortunately for him, his race just falling apart in these last couple of moments. Over that third curve a bit too hard, and he hits the wall hard. He's carrying on, but that's only for his fuel strategy now. That car will be very, very damaged after contact like that. We did also actually see Harmon and Saxton side by side again, but and actually both in front of Dave Douglas now, but still Harmon can't get through. Still just struggling. Half defence from Saxton, but you can't do a defence by half on Daniel Harmon. He gets down the inside into the bus stop. Oh, and he gives room for the second part as well. It wasn't entirely necessary, but it's given him a much better exit out of the Le Mans chicane. And Harmon will surely now be able to skip away with 7th place. I mentioned earlier that while he'd been making his way through the traffic, even while he'd been making his way through the traffic, he hadn't actually lost any time to the leader, Anthony James. But after that fight with Saxton, it's not entirely true anymore. He's now further away than he was. To be expected, but got to be factored into when you're doing a last to first like this. Plane coming into land, not far from the airport here at Daytona, as we know. Right next to the runway indeed, over here. Just outside Daytona Beach, on the east coast of Florida. It's 7 degrees Celsius now, the track temperature. It's gone up by 5 Fahrenheit since the start, in just half an hour. At that rate, the track temperature might well be something like into the hundreds by the end of the race, but see, that's not quite up to words. We'll see how it goes. Andrew Long trying to get past Todd Goldberg now for 4th. Oh, and he's, well, oh no, he's missed it. Long missed his pit box. Can he get another lap out of that car, or has he made a grave error here? Sheldon Daharichuk's in. He definitely can't make this race on 2 pit stops. That's for certain. Neither can Daniel Harmon or Mark Saxton. They are in early. Well, that is potentially fatal for Andrew Long and his hopes for this race. He's already lost a lot of time to Todd Goldberg there. 1.2 seconds. Here comes Dave Douglas, by the way. Look at the wreck. If he wasn't going to make it on 2 stops, he should have just come in when he had the crash, to be honest. Sheldon Daharichuk still in the pit lane. Now he goes 29 seconds. That's it. He's brimmed that tank, that's for sure. How long are the others going to spend on pit lane? Harmon, see his time come into view in a second. 28 seconds. Saxton similar. 28 as well. Douglas similar. All of the guys coming in now are pretty much brimming these tanks before heading back out onto the racetrack again. But all of them who stopped now will have to make a third pit stop very late on in this race. Here come some of the others. Anthony James and Adam Girling, the top two both in. They need to go another 2 laps if they want to make this on 2 stops. Arthur Chan was telling me before the pro class just what a difficult job it would be to save the fuel, but lots of the pros managed it. In the sport class, doesn't look like anybody's going to be managing it here, unless there is somebody a little bit further down who's doing the fuel saving. Curtis Krumel is going to go on again. The problem is, will it be quicker for him to save and do 2 stops than it will for the top guys to not save and do 3? That is the big question. But he's in the lead for now. That was side by side out the pit lane for Kurt. Oh, and there's Anthony James in danger of getting an unsafe exit there. Side by side with Adam Girling. So narrow on the exit here these days. Well, it always has been Daytona. The pit limiter that extends around the bend now. Which I personally think is a bit of a shame, if I'm honest. But let's see this again. Girling's back. James going in here. And for by the yellow line, it's giving that position. Is that just the way it goes? Wasn't just racing. We'll see the still not. We'll see whether the stewards decide to do anything about it. Well, that's not. Never know. Read the rule. To be honest. What is the rule like? It's quite hard to work out. But anyway, these guys should be the 1 and 2 in this race. Curtis Krumel and Philip Ramey at the front have not stopped yet. And Krumel's going on again. So he definitely has made the... or is attempting to make the 2-stop work. And he's made the first stop deadline, as it were. And so has Philip Ramey. Now, Girling and James are just over 20 seconds behind Krumel. They're only 9 behind Ramey. They were not top runners from the opening parts of this race, I think it's fair to say. It's these two, up to these two, really, to try and run them down. I'm glad to say, with 80 minutes to go of this race, of this season, indeed, in the sport class. Sophie and Louis going to be joined by Joe Peake to the finish. Good to have you back, Joe. Good to have somebody alongside me. Fascinating, actually. You've joined at a fascinating point. The pit stops first time round have just about finished, but unlike in the sport class, the pro class rather, where most of the guys saved enough to do 2-stop, and that was, you know, everyone doing the same thing. In the sport class, it's those in the minority doing the 2-stop. People more inclined to just go as hard as they can and make 3 pit stops over the course of this 2-hour finale.
Yeah, we saw in the club class race that it was definitely split up. And I imagine it's maybe a little bit harder as drivers have slightly less skill, we should say. Put in air quotes, these are still very fast drivers, but it can be harder to try and save the fuel here in these lower classes, as Anthony James definitely uses up a bit to try and make a pass coming down through the Le Mans chicane. And I can tell you that Curtis Krumel has just come into pit lane, and it looks like Philip Ramey is also going to be joining them. You mentioned that they had just managed to pass that limit, so it looks like they did 1 lap beyond, and that's it.
That's all you need, to be fair. To get to this point, I think it's taken quite some fuel saving, so I'm not surprised personally that they've decided to come in at this point. But Don't forget just how sort of not how much I didn't really mention them through that first part of the race. They've just been saving and losing positions, but there was their moment just to show themselves that, yep, they are contenders here. And if these guys, by the way, fight like what they were through the bus stop there, Anthony James and Adam Gerling, if these guys fight like that, then you can see it immediately with Sheldon Zaharchuk. He's now caught up to the two of them, and they're going to cost each other a lot of time. They could cost themselves a chance at the race win. It's going to be fascinating to see if they can run down Curtis Crummell. They haven't got it into their heads, I don't think, yet, though, that they are effectively a team working together here against another team of two stoppers a little bit further down. They're not really seeing it like that at the moment. They're very much seeing this as a race of fighting amongst themselves.
And what we did see in the club class race was that it was possible for drivers who did the three-stop to try and push if they had the speed to at least be competitive. One of the drivers nearly got on the podium with a three-stopper. And I feel like if you are Anthony James, if you're Adam Gerling, you just got to go like the Dickens at this point, because that's your only hope of trying to compete with someone like Curtis Crummell and hope that maybe he has a few hiccups throughout the race. But you've got to be picture perfect if you're on that three-stop.
Yeah, it just costs you so much time to make that extra pit stop. I mean, the full pit stops they've just done take over a minute in terms of pit lane time. Now, that's not a minute of time loss, but it is a big amount nevertheless. It's certainly 30-odd seconds of stationary. Now, it won't be a 30-second stop that these guys are doing and the others aren't, of course, but it is still a long trip down pit lane here, especially with the extended time you have to spend on the pit limiter these days. All the way around here to the left-hand side, you see it in a moment. There are the cones. It's a long way round, so it's a lot of time to lose. And as I say, they haven't quite got it into their heads yet that they're working together against two-stop runners. I mean, the best way to do it, I suppose, is to get out front on your own. And Anthony James has now led this race and is now pulling away from Gerling and Zaharchuk. That maybe is the best way to do it. You don't really need people to help you around here. Being on your own might just be the best thing. And Anthony James does lead this race by more than a second.
Should be just enough to start to break that slipstream. Maybe what he wants. As we check out Ed Trippett having a bit of a spin, coming out onto the banking at turn 6. Thankfully doesn't hit anybody or anything, and is able to get it going, but that is valuable time lost without a doubt. Mike Sachs doing pretty much the exact same thing, almost a carbon copy, and honestly, I kind of understand it. I know I have lost the car in that corner many countless times. It is deceivingly tough, despite it looking like it's only a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, I think that's when you're driving through it, it does seem tighter than that, but that's not really the thing that is difficult about it. To me, the reason why I said earlier it's the most important corner on this racetrack is because the long straight that comes afterwards. As you go through NASCAR turns 1 and 2, and that run up towards the bus stop chicane. Yes, the run to turn 1 might be a little bit longer, but you carry so much momentum through the bus stop that compared to turn 6 that you're really sort of making your own exit there, making your own traction on the way towards the bus stop chicane. It's a very, very long run, as I say, and so important to get right and see 2 repeats there effectively of the same incident. We also saw earlier for Dave Douglas as he was shuffled down to 3rd place, qualifying on pole earlier, shuffled down to 3rd, and as he was chasing the 2 up ahead, went for a spin very, very similar to that as well. So it's very common, and I'm no doubt we're going to see it again for somebody in the next hour and 15.
See these 2 battles for top spots, Gerling versus Zaharchuk and Goldberg versus Evers. Interesting that Gerling and Zaharchuk are actually exactly where they started this race, while James has jumped up 4 positions to that lead that we were talking about, and is got up to about 1.3 seconds. So he is definitely breaking away from P2 and P3 that we see on your top screen right now. Yeah, there he is in the gray car just in front of them, and continuing to just inch forward and put himself out of reach, so they can't try and save fuel sitting behind him, or just simply get a little bit of extra speed in that slipstream. Meanwhile, we've got more battles farther down in the field as Crummell versus Douglas, try to decide P10. We're going to ride on board with Douglas. Interesting that Curtis is going to go up high, and I wonder if there's some teamwork going on here, because he allowed him by with ease.
Well, might not even be teamwork, just Krumel deciding that this is just not worth the battle at the moment. And if anything, him passing me would give me a nice slipstream, at least for the next couple of laps. So I think that would have been foremost of his thoughts there. And that's why, although I agree, to actually pull high like that, making it so obvious, is a bit unusual. You lose quite a lot of time, a surprising amount of time actually, when you pull high on the banking here at Daytona in a road race. But Krumel decides that that's absolutely fine for now. And as I say, he'll be getting a little bit of slipstream, at least for the moment, to that driver now inside the top 10. I'm so fascinated to see whether his strategy is going to work or not. I think he could fall down in terms of actually having the speed to do it. I think he is going to make the two-stop work, and he is going to do this race on 2 pit stops. But the amount he's going slower than these guys, I think, is going to be too much in the end, and they are going to get out ahead. But they can't get complacent. They can't fight among themselves too much, and that's why, as I said earlier, it's important that Anthony James got out in front and is now running at his own pace.
One thing to keep in mind with all these strategies is that while there are drivers that are doing the evenly split one, if you are going long and just simply did not make that 40-minute mark, you have a final short splash and dash to get to the finish. It's I think what we saw last Thursday was about 5 to 7 seconds for most cars. So it'll be a very short stop, and it won't cost you as much as what we've been seeing typically in this race.
No, indeed. So that's all to factor into the equation as well. That's what makes it impossible to predict, really. The fact that these stops are absolutely not uniform across the board, and nothing like it, in fact. So very difficult to predict indeed. But the fact these three have separated themselves out just for now is interesting. It's putting Anthony James certainly at the forefront of those who are doing the 3-stop here, the leader of those. But everybody currently inside the top 10 is also on that strategy. To be fair, that is true. Everyone in the top 10. Curtis Krumel's 11th. So that is absolutely the case. And nobody really made a very early stop inside that top 10. Donald Manning to a degree. Kevin Hamann, although he's down in 15th. But yeah, other than that, it's 3 stops across the board, and mostly at the same time, happening at the same time as well. So pretty uniform so far. But there's still a very, very long way to go in this race, and as you say, at some point they are going to have to make a short pit stop as well.
And for reference for our audience, the gap between our leader of the 3-stop strategy, James, and the leader of our 2-stop strategy, Krumel, is currently 36 seconds, but it has been growing since the pit stop. I know you mentioned that Curtis has been running a noticeably slower pace than those around him, which does make sense. It's just now a question of whether or not the saving of that one pit stop will be enough to get him ahead of James come the final few laps. They're getting close to the halfway point, so those that are trying to split it up evenly are probably going to be ducking in the next 10 minutes as we watch Randy Lervold in this battle for P13 with Philip Ramey, who is the next car down, who is running the 2-stopper.
Yeah, I believe the only other one as well. Currently in 14th place. It's in a rather large group here. Kevin Hamann and Matthew Trolle just behind will be quite eager to actually get through here, especially in Trolle's case. Qualified inside the top 5 earlier on. Currently showing down 12, qualified 4th. And that slight bit of contact through the S's on the opening lap there. Very, very minor, but sent him off to the left-hand side, into the wall. And that was that, unfortunately, as far as a big race result was concerned. Either way, he can try and fight his way through the best he can. And just in front, a little bit of weaving going on. I'm not sure why for Lervold, because you've got Philip Ramey behind you. You know that he's not going to be trying to make a pass. He'd be very pleased to, again, sit in the slipstream, as anybody really on the 2-stop strategy will be very pleased to do.
In fact, he might get past here because Kevin Hamann, in fact, he will get past. There goes the 247. and demotes him yet another position. So yeah, Philip Ramey's not in a fighting mood right now. He is focused on his own strategy, no doubt. As long as he can hold on to this group, he's probably content just to keep riding as long as they're not costing him time. We talked about drivers making their way up through the field. Oh, as we got one spun out once again out of turn 6. Donald Manning gets it turned around. Thankfully, they've added a whole lot more pavement down to that inside in recent-ish years, so he has plenty of room to get himself facing the right way. I was going to say, Dan Harmon qualified 24th. He actually didn't qualify technically, as he did not set a time. Has made his way up 18 positions. It was a pretty good job despite having something go wrong in the Q session earlier today. So I want to give hats off to the 828 today. That's actually Goldberg just in front of him, and Evers as well. So what was a 2-car fight for 4th has now turned into 3.
Yes, indeed. No surprise, really, that Daniel Harmon has been able to join. Very interested to see how far he can get through the field here. And I believe elected not to qualify today for a bit of fun. Now, this is the replay of Manning was backwards as we joined him. And again, it's that same spin. So you can chalk that one up as another one. You might run out of fingers before the finish because we're not even halfway through this race yet. And that's at least 4 I can remember. There might be more. It's that turn 6 traction zone all over again. But yeah, Harmon just coming through here and is continuing to gain time on the leaders. Now only 11 seconds behind. He's been as many as over 20 seconds behind at stages. He is closing though, and he's got more than an hour left to continue on. Getting closer. Perhaps he can cap off this season with yet another win.
He's going to try his hardest. That'll be tough to come from the back, especially with the strategy also kind of throwing a wrench in that, and with the 2 cars that we know are trying to go for the 3-stop, potentially scuppering his hopes of taking the victory. You just have to wait and see whether or not that will be the case, because we're just as much in the dark as you guys are. Just don't have the brain power to try and figure out all the math that is needed to see who is going to wind up where. But I think that Goldberg is going to wind up in P4 because he's gone to the inside of Joseph Evers. Evers does not fight it. Will he give up another position as he leaves the door open behind him to Harmon? Just about does. Dan Harmon takes the apex away, then down towards the International Horseshoe. He's got a nose ahead, but he has to lift as he clips the inside curb. So Evers will retain P5, at least for now, but he's starting to lose touch with Todd.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem, but I mean, don't think too much of a concern for Harmon, really. It's a problem for Joseph Evers, but Harmon will feel, well, I've got the pace to just catch back up again. Yes, it's not ideal, and he does need to efficiently get on with this pass for 5th position. Don't think it's too much of a concern just for the moment. The thing about Daytona is that you know that there's going to be a good overtaking chance and a big long slipstream coming up in just a few moments at any given moment. So helps you stay out of being too negative about stuff, really. So Harmon won't be too worried. He's got to get on with it, though. Try and get to the top 5. Try and get this position away from Joseph Evers. Again, it's not going to happen into the bus stop. Needs to try and do it into turn 1.
Yeah, I anticipate if he gets a good enough exit, that's likely to be the spot, especially if you get a mistake like that out of Evers. And actually may have slowed up Dan a tiny bit coming through the apexes to that bulk his run here. He is going to get that slipstream, and that is going to be enough as he closes and closes, and now will likely pop out to the driver's right. He's got the speed. Is it enough speed? And Evers is already looking like he's about to lose that spot. No, he is going to retain a nose ahead coming down to the braking, but he brakes earlier, and Dan Harmon now moves into the top 5.
And moved over there, and Harmon is on the charge. I think he can absolutely still win this race from here. Oh, different way of going off through turn 6 this time. That's outbraking yourself, and there is quite an unfortunate wall there. It is to separate the cars from turn 1, and to be fair, you don't want people coming through, steaming through turn 1 to that point in the racetrack, but even so, when you're on that line, Saxton braking a little bit too late, then there's a bit of an awkward wall. Manages to avoid it, and he's got bigger problems because Mike Saxton is coming into the pit lane. Now, he can go from here with one more stop, so would still be a 3-top race. Just a very unusual time to pit here, just before the hour mark.
I wonder if he was feeling his tires a little bit on that one, decided to give them a rest, taking this pit stop, and then get some fresh ones to the end, potentially. Don't know that you would want to take tires every stop, because I'm not sure if you have enough time taking fuel. I need to check on that, but at least one of them, I think you'd want to make sure that you don't use the same set for a full 2-hour race. As we come back to Zaharachuk versus Gerling, which has actually run down James. We have not checked in on this. It's gone from I think it was 1.7 down to nearly half a second between them. I don't know if Anthony James made a mistake or found some traffic or what.
I mean, this has just been happening again and again and again in the last hour, to be honest. Gerling and James and Zaharachuk have been mostly sort of 3 of the top 4 at the very least. More recently, they have been the podium positions, and again, one of them will get out front by a second or so and be brought back, and one of them will go at the back and be brought back again. Like Zaharachuk, I mean, at the start of this stint was over a second off the back of the other two. As Gerling and James fought, he got back in. I mean, it doesn't even have to really be much of an error or anything. It just seemed to be toing and froing again and again. This is what we get with a 2-hour race. If this was, say, only an hour-long race, we'd be 2 minutes away from its conclusion. Obviously, the field wouldn't quite look like this anyway, because the strategy is yet to unwind itself in this one. But even so, we don't get such a long race normally where you see such a toing and froing and such a battle of speed and staying consistent, but that is what we're seeing here because of the extended race tonight.
And I just heard on the radio, Mike Sachs, I think he said his pedals failed on him, so that might explain the mistake and why he came into pits. I imagine he probably was just resetting them and making sure that they were in good condition, but this has put him a lap down. At least it was within the pit window, so he should be able to carry on as usual. And yes, his pit stall was 1:15, so he was definitely doing something more than a typical pit stop.
Yeah, that is quite long. So, a shame to see, but there found to be some people tripped up by this long race, by, well, anything really. So far, though, Alan Hale's the only one to not get to the finish. We'll see whether he re-emerges, but so far has been in the pit lane for nearly a quarter of an hour now. And Christopher Costis, by the way, never took the start either. He was in the server earlier, but never took the start. So to be down to 23 on the racetrack in this final race of the season, which has so far been a decent one, but there's a lot to unwind yet before the finish of this one in an hour's time.
Also, just kind of checking on Harmon's pace here as he's on the attack with Goldberg. He's already left Evers. I think he holds the fastest lap of anybody currently. And by a seat margin, looks like it's more than 0.3 of a second. Yeah, there we go. The purple over his name compared to everybody else. So he is technically gaining on Anthony James. Like you said, the win not necessarily out of the bag, but he's still at about 12 seconds back from that leader. He has not been able to dispose of Goldberg yet. Will he be able to finally make a pass? Well, he's thinking about it coming down into the Le Mans chicane. Despite it being a heavy braking zone, typically you don't want to make a move unless you're desperate.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's difficult into the bus stop chicane. It's a big risk, especially with the size of the curves now through there. Got to be super, super careful. But here he comes on the way towards turn 1. Surely now there'll be a chance. Goldberg less receptive to actually letting him through as some of the others have been when he's been passing them. Oh, that's not enough of a car width there. So Goldberg shuts that door. Harmon goes to the outside, and this is going to be a problem for him. This is going to be a proper fight. He would have been hoping Goldberg would just let him go, but told Goldberg not willing to do that.
This is all for P4. Even stays defensive coming down into the International Horseshoe. The 21 giving clear signals that Dan Harmon is not going to have this easily. So the 828 regroups. What's he going to do elsewhere? He's already had to try and go around the outside of a couple corners, including a lap ago here at the Western Horseshoe, where he attempted to look around the outside. He's much stronger on the brakes this time coming into there, but does not stray off the racing line. He's sizing him up. He's evaluating. He's figuring out, where can I try and make an advantage over this orange and black car? Maybe with a better launch coming off of turn 6 as he stays tighter to the inside, but he doesn't get the overlap at first.
He's been left the door. So this is a bit weird now. Goldberg, after defending so hard seemingly earlier in the lap, he's just given it up now, because he could have just kept to the normal racing line there, and that would have been more useful than where he was there. He's still alongside now, though. Now into the bus stop, he lets it go. I think Harmon's going to be gone, although he got wide there. That wasn't the best line. And Goldberg's going to have a chance of coming back in him again. A strange fight at the moment. Hard to know how to read into the tactics of all this. If Goldberg wanted to let Harmon through, he surely would have done it earlier, but now that he's behind again, doesn't seem that he wants to really let him through, doesn't seem to want to let him go. So let's see what happens into turn 1 here. I think Harmon's going to be able to keep the position anyway, but a strange dynamic between these two.
I know if I was offering him advice as they're going to go wheel to wheel down into 1 and he has to back out of it, I'd almost say that Todd needs to try and latch on to the coattails of that 828 and use him as an extra little toe, giving him some lap time for the remainder of this race. Again, wide. Daniel is pushing to try and get away from Todd, but Todd will hold on to him as they come down towards the kink. So, yeah, I wonder if Todd maybe will think twice about trying to go on the attack and just kind of sit and cruise behind this blue car.
I think that would be best. But he might be thinking, well, what else am I actually going to get out of this race? I mean, there's more than 10 seconds up to the 3 leaders. Harmon might be able to get there, but Goldberg, I don't imagine, will be able to go with him and try and stay with him for as long as possible, but I don't think he'll be able to. So, can he just be resigned with 5th position here? See that we've got those guys who are stopping only twice in this race to worry about as well, so lots to think about here. I don't think for Goldberg the outlook's particularly great for the remainder of this race, but these guys have sorted themselves out at the front. They're 3 for the lead still, but they're not fighting quite as much as they were earlier.
No, and they've got a little bit of lap traffic. That's, no, excuse me, that's not lap traffic. That is our leader. I forgot they had caught him so much. It's down to 0.3 of a second now. And it's looking like a proper fight. Gurley and Zaharachuk about 10 seconds ahead of Dan Harmon now that he's made that pass, but we'll watch to see what the lap times are now that they've gone back to single file. In fact, yeah, Zaharachuk a 45.3 last time, Harmon 45.0. So at 0.3 of a second a lap, they're looking at about 30 laps, I think, to get there. And they're on 37. It might come down right to the end.
Yeah, I think this race will do. I mean, it's been interesting. Oh, dear! Little bit of a tie-up this time. God, Anthony James just miscommunicating. And here comes Adam Gerling to the inside of turn 6. This is what they've done so well at avoiding for the last, well, a long time, really. But finally, a little bit of lap traffic. And now there is a battle in the group. It was Donald Manning who was trying his best to stay out of the way, but Anthony James completely miscommunicated with him there.
And on top of things, Gerling, I think, made slight contact coming into turn 6, but they got away with it. And James holds on to the lead, interestingly. So before this starts to kick off, I do want to give a quick mention to our sponsor, Princess Cruises. In fact, they are the sim racing title sponsor for the PCA in 2026, with 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places they visit, and the friendliest crew at sea. Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Treffin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 19th to 25th. Go to the website link on the screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA Travel Concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. 2188. No change in turn one between these three this time by. But if they do start battling, that is music to the ears of Dan Harmon, because that is only going to slow them up, and he's going to catch them at an even greater rate of knots.
Yeah, well, final sort of 53 minutes of this race, and we started off this final hour with a very orderly front three. I think that's exactly what they have to be at the moment, because try and keep Daniel Harmon away for as long as possible. Might not be possible for the whole race, but try and make sure he catches as late as possible. Try and make sure you can see off this other two-stop strategy, because got to be a little bit concerned about where that's going to bring them out. I mean, less worried about Philip Ramey, really. They were only 9 seconds behind him, even as he came into pit lane first time around, but Brummer was over 20 seconds in front. I do think these guys got to be a little bit concerned about that, and the lap traffic is not going their way. Here's another little bit of traffic. It's Kevin Hamann this time, who's just made his second pit stop of the day, right in the middle of the bus stop chicane. Anthony James not actually sewed up too much by him. Now he's got the slipstream, and it could split apart this group. Anything could happen when there's lap traffic involved.
Yeah, I think, if anything, James is kind of happy that that car might be splitting them for a little bit through the infield section. That's where it could do the most damage. He has gotten the hurry up now that he's pulled away from Gerling. I thought for sure that he would find himself under attack, but man, he has taken off, and indeed they will be split by Kevin Hamann down through the infield section, unless he pulls over, and he does try to. It's slightly awkward for Gerling and Zaharachuk, but they are at least passed quickly.
Yeah, that is a relief. Biggest relief for Anthony James might be that he's clear again. And as I said earlier, this race constantly toing and froing as far as whether the leaders with the chasing two, whether they're out front on their own, who even the leader is, has been changing quite often. It's just been one of those races, but Anthony James at the moment is the leader and is clear by 1 second, and he's going to be well over a second clear now. Adam Gerling spins out of turn 6, and his hopes of winning this race evaporate.
Wow, another mistake, and yet another one in turn 6. It has been the absolute bane of these drivers' existence in this race, and we still have 51 minutes left to go in it. Zaharachuk now has no dancing partner besides Anthony James, so it's a little bit of a bigger gap. If he can push, he could still yet catch up. But Gerling, with that mistake, will fall to 5th. Harmon now onto the podium. Here's the replay.
It's just a classic case of trying to get on the power too aggressively out of turn 6. I mean, Gerling got a long way round the corner there, to be fair, before it looked like he was losing it. But it's just a light car now with the pit stops approaching. A little bit bumpy through there. And another spin out of turn 6. Surprised, because they're doing the free stop, surprised that Gerling hasn't just cut his losses and decided to come in straight away. Maybe he's decided that his tyres had not got up to too warm of a temperature, and so he can get away with it. But I'd have been in there just to let the tyres cool down for just a moment and regroup, really, before the final 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because Gerling probably knows a little bit better on what would be ideal in this situation. Right now, he's been sent back with Goldberg in what is a battle for P4. Todd, if he was hoping for a calmer race, finds himself once again in the action, even though he's been left behind by Harmon up ahead. So, who will we see start to pit in? Because as you heard mentioned there from Ewan, drivers who are doing the three stop can easily kind of pick and choose here when they want to come in. We're seeing most of them, it looks like, carry on to try and go long on this second stint to make it a quick splash and dash at the end to try and shorten that one up. But not going to be a good enough run for Gerling. He has not cut Goldberg through NASCAR's 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for Gerling now to make this place on Goldberg convincingly. I mean, again, his tyres can't be in the best shape, and so actually making this move might be quite difficult. This is DiVincenzo into turn 1 a few moments ago. Ooh, that might have been a bit of contact there, Tim Thornton. It's close, but I think there was a bit of contact there. Unfortunately not the first time that DiVincenzo's been around, and Thornton's already received a black flag earlier in this race, so let's hope that's not another one. If there was contact there, then he might well be taking another trip down pit lane.
Well, interesting that you say that, because Race Control did have already comments on that, said no contact, no penalty. So it was a trick of the cameras, apparently. I'm with you. It looked very close to contact.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they would have had a better view, but it did look... I mean, sometimes it can be a trick of the camera, can't it? But it did look very close. Dave Douglas is into the pit lane meantime. He's had a good second stint, actually, is Douglas. He's not going to be pleased, I don't think, with his race result, almost no matter what happens here, because he was pole sitter earlier. And now, well, he's not going to be able to get anywhere near the podium, I don't think. But a consistent, solid second stint, which is consolidated a top 10 finish for him tonight, I'd imagine, as he makes his second pit stop of 3. We're going to see a lot more of those in the next 5 minutes or so. Obviously, anyone hoping to make it to the end will have to go past the 40-minute to go mark, coming up very soon.
Yeah, there's Dave already pulling out, and that'll drop him to 14th. So still not too far down, but like you said, definitely not looking at a potential win based on how things currently sit for him. And we've had a couple others. Ed Trippett, it looks like David Langston also have pitted in. So there's been a couple cars that have called timeout to get some fuel. And we check back in with Anthony James now. And, I was just about to say, Zaharachuk suddenly is way back. That's because he's pitted in.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are not fuel saving at all. So they pitted before, after what, 35 minutes? Can that be right? Yeah, something like that. And so another 35 minutes, a bit longer, and they've had to come in again. Up on the jacks for Zaharachuk, there's just about enough time for them to change tyres at both the first and second pit stops for Zaharachuk and probably Harmon as well. But there won't be time at the final stop. When's Harmon going to get rolling? He's all the way down there, so we'll get rolling first. Because, as I say, he's pretty much the first pit box. There you go, 30 seconds. Zaharachuk about half a second quicker. That's ominous, though, isn't it? You're seeing it down pit lane. You can see how close it is now, and that Daniel Harmon is not that far away, and he's still got plenty of time on his side to do the final bit of closing.
And I did get a chance to see the gap before Harmon pitted in. It was down to 8 seconds between himself and Anthony James. We'll see what it is once Anthony pits in, which I would expect is within the next 2 or 3 laps here, likely 2 laps, since he didn't quite make the 2-stop mark before. As we watch Harmon get back up to speed. That's Philip Ramey in behind him. Remember, he needs to catch Curtis Crummell, who is on that 2-stop strategy, but he's also got to make one more stop in the process as well. And there is Anthony James coming down to the cones, hits his speed limiter, and goes to take his fuel and tires.
Yeah, as expected, really, since Zaharachuk had been in before. Now I see James having to do the same, and Todd Goldberg must have sped on pit lane. He's just entered the lane, and he looked to be going quite fast, to be fair. And so,
yes,
that's the black flag, and that is a speeding penalty. 40 seconds will be lost, and, well, Girling will get that position then very easily, much easier than expected, because Goldberg has that black flag. That's a frustrating error to make.
Yeah, I checked, and he was nearly 80 miles an hour when he got to the cones here. So I thought he pulled in awful late when I watched off camera, seeing him decide to enter in. So may have been too late of a call for him, and now he's paying the price. Adam Girling also pitting after he's had a mistake a little bit earlier. And now, of course, speeding before you get to your pit stall means that Todd Goldberg will have to sit and wait patiently for a good 30 seconds here.
That's going to feel like an absolute age. And some of these guys coming in now are not quite going to get past him, but they won't be far behind when he gets back going again. It's going to be a lower part of the top 10 finish, maybe even worse than that for Todd Goldberg after this error. Still sat there over a minute on pit lane. Should be less than 10 seconds now before he can finally get going again. But as I say, some of those others around him won't be that far behind. Randy Lervold will be, yeah, there he goes, popping out a little bit further down the order. Sorry, that's Bodensteiner rather, but yeah, these are not guys Goldberg was anywhere near before, and now he's the one. He's the ones he's or they're the ones rather he's fighting with for a lowly top 10 finish.
All he can do from here is just push as hard as he can if he wasn't already doing that, which I'm pretty sure he was anyways. So it's going to be difficult to make up that time. Joseph Evers will be the last one on the 3-stop to pit in, it looks like. Other than some of those that are well far down the order. So he looks for his stall. And Curtis Crummell will once again inherit the lead for at least a couple laps. Now, the gap between himself and Anthony James currently sitting at just under 12 seconds. And Anthony James will need one more quick in and out stop, which will probably cost him, I would wager, somewhere in the realm of another 30 seconds that he has to make up.
Well, I think what you've got to... by the way, as he came out initially, I saw James about 9 seconds behind. I guess he's been warming the tyres up. He's lost a bit further time, and someone's off in front of Crummell there. So let's call it 11 seconds, whatever. Crummell's final pit stop here, because everybody's got one more pit stop, their final stop to come, is going to be 30 seconds pretty much on the dot. The question is going to be, what is Anthony James' pit stop going to be? And is it going to be 18 seconds or shorter? I think the answer to that is yes. And therefore, James is effectively the race leader here. But you never know, really. You never know. They've been on that 3-stop strategy running really quite hard. So he might need to stop with 15 minutes to go. And in which case, they might need more than 10 seconds worth of fuel, which is maybe more than what some people would have expected at the start of the day. But anyway, we have to see what the actual fuel fill is going to be when they get to the final pit stops. But I think Crummell is on course for a top 5 here and nothing more. When you stack up those 2 pit stop times next to each other into what's going to be the final stops here, I think even 15 seconds I think would even be insufficient at this stage.
You make a good point on that one. And to watch James, he's likely, since he has been the quicker of the two just based on being able to push on his fuel strategy, is also going to make up some of those 12 seconds on Curtis Crummell, who goes by one more lap, which is what he needs to do. Next time by, he's within the window that he could get to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sounds like I'm saying he hasn't done a very good job because he's not going to win. I mean, that would be a silly conclusion to reach, but Curtis Crummell has done a very good job to get the fuel required here that he needs to get to the end, and so he's going to get a good return from it. It's just not going to be the race win, I don't think, at the end tonight. But again, you never know what can happen behind. There's going to be a battle here for the win between Anthony James, Holden Howard, and maybe eventually Daniel Harmon. So who knows what's going to happen when they get together. That's what Crummell's got to hold out hope for, that he can benefit from whatever happens between those three.
Yeah, Harmon continues to lap consistently in the high 44s and low 45s, which has been very much quicker than Crummell, James, and Zaharachuk each and every time. So I think for Dan Harmon, he's still sitting pretty to be in the hunt. It's just an amazing job considering he started from the very back of the field, even if it was intentionally. As this is Anthony James dealing with some of that lap traffic. DiVincenzo is going to just slot back in between him and Zaharachuk and give some breathing space to the 216. Now, Sheldon should be able to easily go by him here on the banking, as the lapped car is going to stay off to the high side. Curtis Crummell, who we watch, should be pitting in. No, he goes for one more.
Well, he's doing fuel saving for fun now. This is not necessary anymore, but he's still going. It's going to be less than 38 minutes when he pits now. Not that he's going to take any less fuel, but he might be able to push a bit harder. Still don't think that's going to get him in the conversation for the race win, but it is going to be a more enjoyable end to this race for him, and a faster end to this race for him as well. So Zaharachuk brakes too late for turn 1 there, meantime in the bottom right of your screen. The gap teetering again on Anthony James being able to get a gap over the rest of the field. Is over a second, as he's done so many times tonight. Can he finally make one of them count? Is he going to get a gap, first of all? But can he finally make it count? Because he's constantly being offered opportunities, but he's constantly getting reeled back into a slipstream range as well.
Sheldon's car definitely looks stronger later in the stint, so he needs that gap now, most likely, if nothing else. Even if he does get that little bit of a break, we're expecting the 630 to try and start pulling him back in, just based on previous patterns. And then Dan Harmon is actually, I think, within visual of them on some of the longer straights here onto the backstretch. You should be able to see that bright green car. Hard to miss it along the Daytona super stretch. And then Crummell, though, he's a little bit too far away for him to have any sort of visual at this stage. As we take a look at Curtis. And now I feel like this isn't the worst idea. If he had the fuel to go one more time, you might as well give yourself a little bit more comfort zone to get to the end. Like you said, it'll give him a chance to push that little bit harder to the finish. And indeed, he is finally putting up the white flag and coming in for fuel.
Yep, that's extra bit of fuel saving that's got him to this point. A fantastic job. And to be fair, Philip Raven's done the same. So I don't know if they were calculating for one more lap in this race, maybe, than what we've actually got. But anyway, into the pit lane now, and surely it's going to be a full tank of fuel all over again. But this is now handing over to the guys who are actually going to fight over the race win here. Anthony James and Sheldon Zaharchuk, and maybe Daniel Harmon. With less than 40 minutes, he's not really done the closing that I would have expected by this point. So maybe Harmon is beginning to run out of time to get involved here. But don't forget, he only really needs to catch up to a second behind, and then the slipstream will do the rest. But at the moment, he is, 4 seconds or so behind Zaharchuk. So he just have some proper work to do here before he can call himself one of these contenders. Still a very long way to go here, and a pit stop for everybody as well. As Curtis Crummell comes out the pit lane, he will be in 8th place.
And before the pit stop, he was 8 seconds behind James. So down to 4.7, he's definitely gaining. He's been still chipping away at that. Last lap, looks like he was actually a bit slower than both of them. So I wonder if he encountered a little bit of lap traffic or just had a tiny error that we just hadn't have caught. James, like we mentioned, probably pushing to try and get away from Sheldon in this early phase of the stint to give himself some room to maybe back off a little later on when the car gets a little difficult, when it starts to lose pace in comparison to his rival. But no such luck yet to try and break away, although you can see him doing a little bit of weaving. He is considering that slipstream. He wants to try and get away.
Look from on the inside there from Zaharchuk at the line there of someone who was barreling down the inside. He didn't actually do it in the end. It would have been a lunge from way too far back from Sheldon Zaharchuk, so I'm glad he didn't try that. But Anthony James will definitely be looking in his mirrors as a result. And I mean, if I were one of these two, I'd be trying to gesture to the other to stay in line and keep Daniel Harmon at bay, at least for as long as possible. Not sure it is going to be possible for the entirety of the remaining 35 minutes, but you've got to try and reduce the amount of time he'll be at the front for here to reduce his amount of chances of actually getting past these two. But it doesn't seem that they're so inclined to actually work together again here. It seems constantly throughout tonight that this group, whoever's been involved in it, these two have been involved through most of the time, just not that willing to think about really working together, and might well come back to hurt them right at the very end.
Yeah, that last lap by Harmon was 0.7 of a second faster. So he's absolutely taking big chunks out when they start fighting. At that rate, he's certainly going to be there before the end of the race. Although, once he gets by, if he gets by, then they will suddenly find themselves pulling the slipstream of that 828. So they could try and fight back. It'll just depend on them having to be a little bit tricky and slingshotting passed before the end of the race, which is the other thing that we do need to consider. That if it gets close by the end, drivers can try and snipe the win away from the rival, even if they are the slower car.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating finish, that is for sure. There's a lot of racing still to happen here in the next half an hour. So Harachuk staying on his line this time on the way towards the International Horseshoe, not shaping like he was going to go down the inside. And the other factor in with these longer races, even at not a short track like this one, is traffic. Ed Trippett, Mike Sachs and David Langston are all fighting in a 3-driver group just in front of these two. You can see glimpses of them down some of the longer shots. There they are, and towards turn 6. Now, they might move over, but lap traffic always adds a spanner into the works for these races, so we've got to see how they navigate these three now as well, and see whether that opens up any opportunities for any of the three, with seeing as the top three here, seeing as the main contenders for this race.
And I think the big factor is how close are these cars going to be. Langston, the first one, I think he's a little bit too far back. You can see from our shots, he's kind of all on his lonesome. Sachs and Trippett, though, are within range that they could try to fight. And yes, they do need to hop out of the way when the leaders come through. They're at least asked to, and most of the drivers are pretty polite about it. But if you can get an advantage over your rival, no doubt somebody's going to try and use that with the lapping cars. Speaking of getting an advantage, Zaharachuk has the draft coming up towards the tri-oval, and while he takes a look, I don't think this is going to be a serious attempt. James will cover the inside regardless as a precaution.
I think there was a little bit of a shake there from Zaharachuk that made it look, maybe he was trying to sort of go from one side to the other, make James think he was going to go around the outside and then actually dive to the inside. But no, in the end not. There is Langston, I think, pulling out the way. Yeah, David Langston. He's in 18th place at the moment, so no change in the front two with that first bit of traffic, but the next two ahead are actually fighting, so that always makes it a little bit more difficult.
Really is. Sachs has gotten ever closer since I first mentioned that he's within range to make this a bit of a headache for those behind. Ed Trippett, will he try and fight him? Will Mike Sachs also be a little bit less willing to give way to these two once they catch up to them? It's looking like maybe about 2 or 3 seconds up the road currently for them to gain. And the last lap looks like it was actually not fairly different between Sachs and Anthony James, surprisingly. So their pace is looking like it might take a little longer than I anticipated to get up to them. That also doesn't take into account that Zaharachuk might simply not wait for them to catch them, because look at how close he's gotten over the last couple laps.
This is the best chance he's had for a while, and he might choose now to go through to lead. Well, that was a strange move from Anthony James. He drifted high through NASCAR. Oh, and he's in. Wow. Oh, he's gone through surely too quickly. Has he slowed that down? It looks like he has. That looked too quick to me, but he must have just about got slowed down in time. That was very close. So just as Zaharachuk was getting a bit more threatening there, and he was definitely going to make a move towards turn 1 if James didn't pit, Anthony James decides, well, I'm going to go and make my final pit stop then. No tyres taken in his final stop. It's just a little bit of fuel required to go to the end.
I wonder if his thought process is that rather than fighting with Zaharachuk, let's just get myself out on my own. Curtis Crummell, oh, he's going to come out way ahead of Curtis Crummell. So this actually gives us a great reference point on where Curtis will wind up on that 2 stop. And it's honestly nowhere near Anthony, if I'm frank.
I think it's going to be 4-4-5, if I were to guess, for Crummell, but it's not going to be the win, as I said earlier. And yeah, about 10 seconds. It's just a little bit less fuel than I thought it would be required for James. But don't be surprised if Zaharachuk and Harmon are something similar. I think he might be hoping they go on and fight themselves, but we'll see. Maybe one of them is going to pit as well in response in the next couple of laps to join him. But if they go on, they could go for another 15-20 minutes, those two at the front, so it could be a while until we see this field properly unwind for the run to the end.
Harman's got it down to just 2 seconds between them. Before he catches up to him, let's give a quick moment to Princess Cruises, as they are a PCA sim racing title sponsor for 2026. With 17 ships sailing to 345 destinations on 7 continents, world-class cuisine inspired by the places they visit, and the friendliest crew at sea, Princess is ready to welcome you on board. And specifically for PCA members, join the Treffin at Sea 2026 Pacific Wine Country Cruise on the Grand Princess, sailing from Vancouver to Los Angeles, September 9th to 25th. Go to the website link on the screen, pca.princesspartnerships.com, or call 833-679-2188 to speak to a PCA travel concierge agent. That's 833-679-2188. So Harman is continuing to cut in on Zaharachuk. I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to try and overtake before all is said and done. He's still got a half an hour left to go in this race. Clearly a pace advantage over the two that were fighting for the lead. The only difference now is that Anthony James has separated himself through this final pit stop and is now running 7th. And I guess critically for him, he is on his own. He is not fighting or having to lap anyone.
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned actually he was going to be out behind Dave Douglas there, Anthony James, because he was fairly close to the exit of the pit lane, but doesn't look like he's going to get tripped up by that too much. Andrew Long not that much further in front either, so maybe that will become a problem for him, but it isn't right now. And we'll very soon be able to compare the lap times at the end of this lap for Anthony James compared to the others. The concern I would have for him is the fact that he stopped so early means that he'll be so much heavier than the others for so much longer. That's why they won't respond here. I think Zaharachuk's going to carry on and run this tank dry, or at least until Harman gets there. But even then he'll probably want to stay in front of Harman and try and defend from him. So, I'd say, could be a while until we actually see the field properly unwind. I think when it does, Anthony James might be further behind than he thinks.
I would agree that James has taken strategically the less desirable option here. The car heavier on fuel will make it difficult to try and sneak through. Peter Yerk's trying to do his best Tasmanian Devil impression here as he uses that tornado to try and go up through the fields in that 54. Unfortunately, it's only left him in 21st and a lap down currently, so it's not exactly giving him a lot of speed, but giving us a little fun, at least out on the track in the meantime, as we watch Anthony James just continue to put the laps in here. Actually, no, excuse me, this is, we're watching here. This is DiVincenzo, I think, chasing on De Silva. This is for 18th spot. Or no, this is Adam Gerling, apologies.
Yeah, that Evers behind, I think, for 3rd. So, well, I say 3rd now, won't be later, but this is Gerling just showing, I guess, how much one mistake really can hurt you, because it wasn't a 20 seconds time loss in that one spin, but everything subsequently, losing time, recovering, and in the laps after that, just put him a long way down now as far as how far he is behind the two leaders, who are now in slipstream range of one another, by the way. That's a black flag for DiVincenzo, who is in a battle behind Antonio De Silva, but he's going to have to be in the pit lane again for another one of those stewards' black flags put in the final moments of this season.
Taz must have sent his whirlwind through another car unfairly there, unfortunately, and he is just taking it now. There he goes, DiVincenzo, finding himself serving that one quickly, as you only get about 3 or 4 laps to try and get that done. Andrew Long also coming in, and I believe he is on the 3 stop. Yeah, he is on the 3 stop, so this is him also taking a slightly shorter stint. So the 12 should be good to go. Let's see how long his pit stop winds up being in comparison. About 10 seconds. So that's what you were saying earlier, there, Ewan, expecting the drivers to be somewhere in that range and getting back out. And he actually will emerge in what is ninth place.
Yeah, although Bodenstein not too far behind. But no, it should be ninth place as it evens out. So again, so hard to actually figure out where everybody is in this race at the moment, because a lot of people haven't made their last stop yet. Indeed, that goes for the whole top 5. Todd Goldberg in there will drop out of there. Bodenstein will drop out the top 10, although Lervold got to stop as well. Philip Raymer will probably get a top 10 if he can make that 2-stop work, and it looks like he will do. So, still a lot to work out, but where are these two going to come out in relation to Anthony James is the real question. As you said earlier, the strategy is not the optimal one. But if these two fight, then he'll be brought back into it. And to be honest, even if he comes out third, James, and these two filter out in front of him, if he's within a second of them, then he can use the slipstream to get back involved again. And we're only 10 minutes or so away from seeing those final stops. It's not like last week in the Pro class where they were actually getting very, very close. Even the guys on 3 stops actually getting very, very close to making it on fuel. So there was only a couple of minutes left when they made their last stop. These guys are going to have at least 10, I would say, minutes remaining when they have to come in for their final pit stop of the day. So that gives James a bit of time on his side to get back involved in the battle for the race lead. Hopefully it gives him enough time to get in the slipstream and actually make a fist of this late on.
Girling and Evers also tussling for P3, admittedly 20 seconds behind. We heard Ewan mention that a little bit earlier, just how much had been lost through the mistake for the 249 car. Finds himself, at least for now, on the podium, but we're expecting maybe that to change a little bit come the end of the race, as we're still owed a pit stop by Zaharchuk, Harmon, Girling, Evers, and Douglas. Anthony James, the highest up car right now that has completed all of his stops, but we think that he is going to be running slightly slower. In fact, his last lap, a 45.8. Compare that to Zaharchuk, a 45.3.
We're getting some proper comparisons now with the two groups. I'm afraid the lap times I've seen so far have only bore out what I've feared for Anthony James, really. But he's not going as quick as those at the front. Although, as far as the front two are concerned, I must say that Harmon has found it harder to catch up and pass Zaharchuk than I thought. But it's hard now, I think, to not say that Daniel Harmon is the favourite for this race. He's won every single race this season apart from the one at Sebring, where he finished in 5th place. That's still his drop round, and looks like it's still going to be after tonight. He could end the season with 7 wins out of 8, and with only 7 races counting, effectively 7 wins out of 7, which is pretty remarkable for Daniel Harmon. We'll see whether he can actually do that, because he's come from the back of the field here, and there's still a pass to be made and a fight to the end to be had. But he's on the cusp here of a season that doesn't come around very often.
He's also not been perfect. We saw him go a little bit wide there at turn 1 this lap. That's why he suddenly dropped a tiny bit on Sheldon. See if he can clean that one up, because we know he's got better pace than the 630 car. In fact, there under braking, you can see just how much he closes in here through Le Mans and out back onto the banking once more. Still sits at about 0.4 of a second behind. Could be maybe just trying to use the slipstream of that 630 to save a tiny bit of fuel, even if he couldn't get to the end. If he has a short stop and leapfrogs Sheldon, then that makes an easier job of trying to overtake. Well, that makes it terribly easy. Sheldon did not fight and lifted early.
Yeah, very unusual. I must admit, some of the times these guys have decided to fight and not fight are really puzzling me tonight. It's been a race of strange tactics, and Harmon's been given the lead there by some distance over Sheldon Zaharchuk. The only thing I can think of had some sort of slow-down penalty coming out the bus stop, but that's quite harder to manage these days. So we have a look at the... is that a bear? It's not very well drawn. I probably shouldn't say that. It might be quite, you know. Anyway.
His 6-year-old is offended.
I know, yeah, I definitely shouldn't have said that. But strange tactics. I mean, I can't get my head around it. And it's not the only one. I mean, it's benefited from some strange tactics in the past, but the times at which some of these guys are fighting and not fighting is really odd. And that just seemed like not the time to just let Harmon go. I mean, if he passes you in an actual pass, then fair enough. There's not much you can do about that, but you just let him go there. And I don't really see the benefits as to why, because I mean he's almost already losing the draft, which would be terrible for his race.
And I did hear them chatting over the radio. I didn't quite catch the messages. I heard some numbers, and I wonder, thinking about it, if from the numbers that I heard, if he was asking what kind of laps he could run, because I think he mentioned something about 4s and 5s, which would tie into kind of the laps, 44s and 45s that we've been seeing. But I agree with you that he let him go to such a degree that now he's barely holding on to what advantage he could have gained to letting him by and tried to ride the slipstream to gain a little bit of extra pace. So maybe just a poor execution on Sheldon's part on this one as he gains a little bit coming down to the braking of turn 1. And I see some lap traffic in front that could give him a shot to try and re-catch him up.
Yeah, well, he's going to need to. There's not long left now at all in this race, and surely not long until these guys have to come in and make their final pit stop of the day. Approaching lap 60 now, and these guys have been able to do about 20 laps in the past at a maximum, so won't be long now. There's Anthony DiVincenzo going for a spin meantime through the International Horseshoe. Not the best race, unfortunately, for DiVincenzo, although I feel like we've been saying that fairly often through this season. Has yet to score a top 10 through this season, only one top 15. That isn't going to change tonight, as he's running down in 20th position. But glad to say for the field as a whole, only 22 cars still running. Matt Trolley and Alan Hales still the only ones to retire from this race.
Yeah, not a bad ratio. And not a bad ratio for Harmon to go from last to first now. We have to remember that he began at the very back of the field. Now, Sheldon caught him back up by about 0.3, so this has worked out despite our criticisms of his methods. He's at least got himself close enough that he's going to feel the effects as long as he doesn't make a mistake in the infield portion of the lap around here. And both of them do still need to come in for a pit stop. We're watching to wait and see where they fan out in terms of Anthony James, as we've got a view of Joseph Evers with Joe Engineer Racing. I have to confess I'm not as familiar with that team, though.
No. It's good to have a look around these guys just at the end of the season. Been a long season, as I was saying at the beginning, since the beginning of January when we started the season 15. All drawing to a close here at Daytona this week and last week with our 4 categories, with a 2-hour finale at Daytona. As I was saying earlier, I don't remember this ever happening in PCA, a 2-hour race to end the season. Proper endurance, really, but for just one driver in a series that previously only just having 1-hour races. It does make it, even though 2 hours isn't really an endurance when you think about it. A lot of these guys will have done races longer than that, even maybe on their own, but the fact it's in a season of just 1-hour races does make it feel a lot more of an endurance challenge, and that's really what it has been here, closing in on the final laps of it.
For what it's worth, the Porsche Endurance Challenge North America runs 1 hour 40 minutes, so this is technically longer than that, so not unheard of. Slightly different cars since they use the Cup cars, and we're running the GT3R 992. Meanwhile, battle for third between Gerling and Evers has not gone away, although I think Gerling, he's stayed in front, so there's been no change of position, at least that we have seen or noticed up to now, as Evers creeps closer. He might try to make me eat my words. He's going to look around the outside, coming off the banking in NASCAR 4. Gerling continues to defend, and coming up through the tri-oval, think Evers going to lose a little bit of ground as it's a longer distance into here, but it is a better braking coming wide into that corner, and he takes advantage of that. Evers now moves to third.
Yeah, nicely done on the outside there. You got to have a lot of faith in the driver on the inside line that they're not going to understeer straight on into the side of it, especially through turn one. But Evers makes a nice pass there. And this could be a fight for a top position a little bit later on. Now, I think James and Krummer will get ahead of them, so I think they might even be fighting just for 6th place, these two later. Maybe the last spot inside the top 5, actually. But nevertheless, they'll fight hard for it. And Adam Gerling especially, because the pace he showed earlier shows the pace of someone who could have finished on the podium, but that one error coming out of this corner here, turn 6, has just cost him so much in this race.
Boy, did it ever. You really have to be on it, especially in this series, because one thing we have to remember, yes, this is the sport class, and yes, it is the third of the 4 classes that we have. But I think one thing that defines the PCA is that their matching system is so incredibly close. They have a lot of drivers who participate, and they do an incredible job using the averages of the laps to sort everybody in there while getting rid of sort of the outliers, so that you get a real representative chunk of times. And it winds up causing situations where sometimes we see fields that have maybe 2 seconds between 35 cars, which is incredibly close and means that you cannot make mistakes, because you're not just losing one position, you are losing multiple with just a simple spin.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what Adam Gerling has seen up close tonight with that one error. At the time, it was him, Zaharchuk, and Anthony James at the front. Well, none of those 3 are in the leading group anymore, you could argue, because Daniel Harmon's on his own. More than a second now in front of Zaharchuk. Last time round, a 44.4. Much quicker than Anthony James is going, by half a second as well. I think this race is going to be Daniel Harmon's to win again, and what an extraordinary season, what an extraordinary way to cap off a brilliant season it would be for him. That would be 7 wins out of 7 counted races, and all of the races finishing inside the top 5. I mean, that is domination in a season that we've very rarely seen before in the PCA.
Agreed. Dave Douglas, by the way, has pitted and come back out in 9th position. A little bit of a longer one as well, 14 seconds that he was taking fuel. Not sure what that's about. He emerged 2 spots behind Curtis Crummell. What has his pace actually been like? Looks like he might have a chance to try and run him down, but he's split right now by Andrew Long, currently between them. So we'll have to wait and see how that starts to play out in these final 10 minutes once he gets back up to pace here. In the meantime, Ed Trippett also taking his pit stop now that he has reached the limit there. Oh, was that a mistake? Was that Douglas on the inside of the corner? I think it was.
Well, I didn't see, but Douglas is about to lose a position to Randy Lervold. There he goes.
Can't confirm.
Yeah.
He's spun out on his way out of the corner. Turn 6 claims another victim. The wall was in our way. We couldn't quite see. I just felt he was slow once he entered the frame. And yeah, exactly like what we've seen so many other drivers do.
And indeed he did very early in this race. It's the pole sitter earlier, Dave Douglas, don't forget. And just after he'd lost the lead for the first time and he was chasing, he had a spin. A bit more dramatic than that, actually, but in any case, that's the second time now. Randy Lervold gets past him as a result, but Lervold still has to pit yet. So shouldn't be too much of an argument between these two. Douglas back to the top 10 again, where he will stay towards the finish. He's going to be forced to be pleased to finish in the top 10 in the final race of this season, something he's only managed to do one other occasion this season. But when you start on the pole and you finish outside the top 5, you never feel too great about the race.
Harmon is in, so our leader pits. Where does he emerge is the big question mark. Anthony James has been trying to match pace. At times he was. I was keeping an eye on it, but it was inconsistent. So it's hard to tell. If I'd have to make a bet, I would say that Harmon likely will come out ahead. But here is where we get that answer finally. Harmon is already moving. 10 seconds done and dusted. James is just coming up to the tri-oval now. So yeah, I think Harmon is easily our leader.
I think so. Joseph Evers is going to be a temporary leader. Harmon is going to be the one to take it to the end here. His stop was 4 tenths quicker than Zaharchuk's anyway. To be fair to actually James, his stop was shorter than both of them, and he is out on the racetrack up to speed. However, they didn't change tyres, none of them did, so that cold tyre warm-up phase isn't there, and James has indeed ended up third of the 3 of them.
Kind of what we anticipated, although he's not as far back as I thought he might have been. It's about 2 seconds to Harmon, 1 second to Zaharchuk. We just need to wait for Evers to be the last to pit in of this group. And Curtis Crummell, I believe, should wind up. It looks like either P5 or P6.
Yeah, I think, is he going to be ahead of Evers by the time he stops?
I think not. I think Evers should be able to get back out in time.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. But I think probably 6th place. I thought Crummell might be able to get top 5, but yeah, maybe it will be 6th place in the end. But a great job to save the fuel. It's hard to tell really whether it would have been better for him to go flat. I mean, he's not going to win this race, but you could argue that someone qualifying 8th would never go into anyway. He's up 2 places on where he qualified. Could be 3 if Evers drops in behind him. So perhaps it is a slightly better strategy, but most of them decided at the start of today that making 3 pit stops and running as hard as possible was the better one. And maybe they've been proven correct by this.
Yeah, it could have only been 1 position if you think about it, because Dave Douglas is behind him by about 9 to 10 seconds right now. And with Dave having 2 spins, if it weren't for those mistakes, Douglas would have been in that 6th spot, maybe even higher up than that. So for now, it is just continuing to make the fuel numbers. If you're Curtis Crummell, if you're Joseph Evers, his fuel numbers is actually pretty good because he carried on another lap. He still needs to come in here, and I'm pretty sure he will. But impressive as far as he's been able to go.
Randy Levold and Peter Bodensteiner make their final stops. I'm surprised by how late Joseph Evers has been able to take this, but I don't think he's going to be able to spring any huge surprises by making it to the end. I imagine he'll be in on this lap indeed, but further behind, the battle between Zaharchuk and James will be a very interesting one. They're not going to catch up to Harmon, I don't think, and in any case, the teamwork between drivers, the alliances that they've been forming or not been able to form indeed throughout this race have been very telling really, and so even if they were fast enough, I don't think they'll be able to work together enough to actually get there in time for the end of this race. But let's see as Joseph Evers comes up towards the pit lane, and I think will make the final pit stop of the day.
He does indeed. Harmon now re-inherits the lead as he crosses the line, and Evers finds himself needing to take a tiny splash of fuel. Should be very, very short to get him in what is 2 or 3 laps to the finish, and then he'll try and emerge and take it to the end. Zaharchuk versus James on our screen. James, having pitted early, gave up that track position, but at least emerges with a chance to try and fight for that P2. It's just unfortunate that Harmon has been on another planet this season, and I don't think no matter what James had done, I don't think he was going to be beating that 828.
It's been remarkable, the season for Daniel Harmon, and this final race of the season has just underlined it, I think. It's been a fantastic drive from the back of the field here for Harmon. And you can see why he decided not to qualify. a bit of fun. It's a bit of a challenge, see whether he could get to the front in 2 hours. Well, he did need all 2 hours, to be fair, but he has got there in the end. And who knows what would have been different if Anthony James would have stayed out there for a bit longer and stayed with the others, because in a proper fight, I think with two of them to get past, Harman might find it a bit more difficult, but the way that it turned out, he's been able to get to the race win, the race lead, and looks like the race win as well. He comes up towards the start-finish line. I think there may only be 2 laps to go at the end of this one. There might be 3, but it's going to be pretty close. No, it will be 2 laps to go at the end of this one. So not long now for Anthony James to get back into this second place. He's done well to even get back on terms with Sahara Chukchibaras based on where he came out the pit lane. Now coming up towards the start-finish line, can he draft past in time, or is he just going to wait here? It's the classic thing at Daytona. We haven't seen too much of it tonight because the race is so long, but we might see James now just waiting behind and try and dash past right on that run to the line at the very end of this race.
I alluded to it earlier. Drivers, no doubt, are well aware of that factor in this race. James may be thinking, if I'm not quick enough to pass and leave Zaharachuk behind, better to maybe try to be a little bit sneaky on this one. At worst, I still wind up in third because we've got 21 seconds over Adam Gerling. It is a big gap off of the podium. It is basically down to these two. And to their credit, they're only about 1.5 seconds behind Harman. So yes, he passed them and went by. They're not huge amounts of time behind the 828. It's just I think a gap, unless there's a mistake from Harman, that's probably a bit too big to try and make up with so little time left.
Yeah, there really isn't much time anymore. We started with 2 hours on the clock, now down to just 2 minutes and 1 lap to go. The white flag's being readied, and the final lap is upon us. These two have run out of time to catch up to Harman, although it wasn't ever going to be possible anyway, I don't think. Anthony James now, all he's left to do is to think about how he's going to get past John Zaharachuk on the run to the line. Now, since the update, I think it's got a bit harder to do the classic strategy it used to be at Daytona, especially in a GT3 or similar race, which is hang back for the final lap and get them on the run to the line with the checkered flag waving. I don't think that's as easy anymore. Maybe Anthony James is just finding that bus stop chicane a little bit difficult, and so he's not able to get the run that you can get, but I think those curves are making it more difficult, and he's going to have to think about a move somewhere else. But that was the last run towards turn 1. That was the last big braking zone there, in towards turn number 1 for James, and he was nowhere near close enough. And I don't think he's close enough to be getting his nose in front by the start-finish line when that checkered flag's waving either. So Zaharachuk, for me, is the favourite to finish in second place, but can he hold on here through the final lap?
Anthony will need an incredible launch off of that final chicane, no doubt. And to be within probably this 0.3 second range coming through the chicane too, just to get that timing right, as they've caught up Daniel Harman a little bit. It's down to 1.3, 1.2. As Daniel Harman may be a bit shy on fuel of this one. Do we need to be concerned at all? Because the gap has just come down a little bit. And speaking of gaps, though, look at James. This is what we were saying he needed to do. He is right on top of him now.
Surprised he's been able to do this, but fair play to him into the Le Mans chicane. He knew that the run to the line wasn't reliable enough. He's got to the inside for the chicane, and he's got it. Anthony James into second. What a great pass. And it's not a good run for Zaharachuk out the final chicane, I don't think. I think James has secured himself second with a brilliant pass on the last lap there.
Completely unexpected, if I'm honest. Usually, like we said, it is a pass coming to the line. There's no pass to the line for Daniel Harman. As he gets to the tri-oval, he will go from last to first to take another win here in the sport class. And Anthony James will make the pass on the last lap to move to P2 past Zaharachuk.
Remarkable from Daniel Harman. Worth reiterating again. Started from the very back of the field tonight. Came through 23 places and still comes through to win. His 7th win of the season in 8 races. I don't remember ever a more deserving champion in any of our classes, to be honest, in the PCA since we've been covering it in the last couple of seasons. This has been extraordinary, really. Looking forward to seeing what Daniel Harman can surely do in the club class next season. I'd wager he'd probably be a contender even up towards the front there, because this has been a very, very dominant season. And to underscore it, by the way, with perhaps his most impressive victory of the season right at the very end, just says it all.
Certainly. And let's go through the results to kind of give you a bigger picture of how it went for everybody else, because Daniel Harmon may have won, but it was Anthony James taking a P2 up 3 spots from where he started. Zaharachuk finished where he began in P3. Adam Gerling was in 4th, with Joseph Evers finishing in 5th. Curtis Crummell, using that 2-stop strategy to decent effect, gaining 2 spots, finishing 6th. Andrew Long was 7th, and Dave Douglas from the pole, sadly down to 8th. Philip Ramey, also a 2-stopper, with 9th place. He actually started this one in 6th, though, so that one didn't work out for him. It was Todd Goldberg who rounds out your top 10. Peter Bodensteiner was 11th, with Tim Thornton in 12th, and Kevin Haman in 13th. And it was Randy Lervold, P14, and Ed Trippett in the 15th spot. Mike Sachs was 16th. David Langston, P17 for him, ahead of Antonio De Silva in 18th, Ryan Mullaney in 19th, and Anthony DiVincenzo coming home in 20th. Last few was Donald Manning in 21st, Peter Yerxa 2 laps down, 20 seconds. Trollet and Hales, your only 2 DNFs in today's race. So let's talk to Daniel Harmon and see how he felt about trying to work his way up to the front, and if it was a little close for comfort for him, because Daniel, congratulations, last to first. You did wind up in the lead, but it took towards close to the end of the race, so we saw that they were gaining on you a little bit on the last lap. Was the fuel a little tight?
Yeah, fuel was definitely getting tight, and I wasn't really sure if Sheldon, some of the other guys, were on a 2-stop or a 3-stop, so I was trying to play it a little safe as I got close to the end and keep at least a second, if I could maintain it. But yeah, it was close.
Well, I'm glad you managed to get to it in the end, but talk about this season. Did you ever dream that you'd win all but a single race?
Not really. I think coming in, I didn't know what really to expect, and so I just put a lot of seat time in. I think at the beginning of the race and the interview, that's kind of what I committed to, is a lot of seat time, a lot of practice, working with Blake Townend, and yeah, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I was a little nervous when the race started and I blew qualifying, but yeah, it's a long race, so I had lots of time to make up some of the distance.
And lastly, talk to us about this format. How do you feel with this being the first time they've run the 2-hour enduro?
I wasn't really sure what to think. I haven't really driven Daytona at all, so this was all kind of new, and the 2-hour enduro is a little bit new. It's definitely a different game. I think you don't have to worry about the same things as the hour races. You have to be a little bit more prepared for, the longer stints, and I had some issues with my auto fuel not actually clicking, so I was panicking on some of the straights trying to get iRacing to cooperate. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Again, congratulations. Really amazing job coming from the very back of the field, and hopefully we'll see you be as competitive next season.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
It's Daniel Harmon, your winner here today. I believe we've got Anthony James ready to chat with Ewan, though, coming home in second.
Yeah, indeed. After a very impressive last lap pass. Anthony, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Let's talk about that last lap first of all before we get into any of the other part of the race. I thought after you weren't able to get through into turn 1 on the last lap that was it, and you weren't going to be able to get to second place, but you did with an impressive pass at Le Mans chicane. Talk us through your thought process through that final lap of the race.
Yeah, so I was hoping to keep drafting Sheldon to try to catch the leader, Daniel, and when it came to push and shove and it was the last lap, I says it's now or never. So I went for it, and Sheldon's a stand-up guy. He knew he had it beat, so it worked out great.
Yeah, it did. Talk us through that strategy call that you made with about half an hour to go, because you were at the front with Sheldon. Also, Daniel Harmon was catching you both as well. I thought he probably was going to catch you both anyway at some point, but do you wish you'd maybe left that final pit stop a little bit longer now because of the way the race panned out, or was that always your plan?
Well, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I don't know, but what I saw was Sheldon was pushing hard, Daniel was coming. It was just a matter of time, and I saw we were coming on lap traffic. So I was hoping that if I take my splash now, Sheldon might be held up with lap traffic. And as it turned out, when I came out of turn one, we were 1, 2, 3 right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations nevertheless on getting your first podium of the season with a second place. I believe this will vault you into the top 10 in the point standings as well at the end of the season, although that's just my maths. So congratulations on all of that, and thanks for chatting to us at the end of the season as well.
Excellent. Thank you guys for the broadcast work and everything that PCA guys do. We have some really excellent hosts, and it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to next year.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Anthony James. Chatting to us at the end. There's second place at the final race at Daytona.
And behind him was Sheldon Zaharachuk, and Sheldon obviously lost that one on the last lap, but the way that you lost it, Sheldon, caught us by surprise. Were you kind of shocked to see the move coming down into the Le Mans chicane?
Well, I was. I thought he was taking a really risky pass, and I just said that, you know what, I don't need the second place, and I don't want to wreck it at this point. So I kind of backed off a little bit and just let him go through and see if he got it right. If he didn't, then I'd take over, but he got it okay.
That was certainly a fun one to watch for us. You were in that battle for the lead for quite a bit of this race, and we noticed that Anthony seemed to repeatedly kind of lose pace late in the stint. Was it just that you were stronger at the end of the stint, or do you feel like his car maybe was set up for early runs?
He did seem to slow down, and I found that, he was fast enough that I could never get around him. But yeah, he was slowing me up a bit, especially around the ends of the stint. I think he's a teeny bit faster in the straights than I was, but yeah, I just couldn't get enough of a head start from him.
And lastly, we did notice your paint scheme here. Talk to us a little bit about this. What's with the bear theme?
Well, I'm Canadian, and that's Canadian Rockies. The bears are common around here, and so I kind of like have an affinity for them. And so I thought I'd stick the bears on the side of the car.
Well, it caught our eye. It definitely makes a splash on that bright lime green. Congratulations on a podium.
Thank you very much, and have a great night.
That was Sheldon Zaharachuk finishing P3, which is going to wrap us up for tonight. Of course, we got one more to go. Tomorrow night, Thursday, we will have the challenge class here on PCA. And a big thank you goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team behind the scenes, Ramiro and Ewan. And thank you for watching. I'm Joe Peak. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Celebrations are felt beyond words. No one connects you to the ones you love like Princess. Princess Cruises. Book now.